All right, today we're going to talk about building a strong foundation. This is after you've completed your rough draft and you're going back through and you're reading the steaming pile of garbage that you've just created as your rough draft. So, we're going to make it not a steaming pile of garbage by looking at the structure of the work. And look, basically, this is structural editing. So, we're going to take a look at story pacing, plot coherence, developing characters, and incorporating some feedback. So when you're assessing your story's pace after you finish your rough draft, go back through. Don't focus on the little errors. You're talking about the speed and the rhythm at which the story unfolds. So this is critical for keeping your readers engaging and making sure that the story doesn't drag on and it doesn't feel rushed. So you're going to identify key scenes and map out the major events and the turning points of your story and make sure that they're kind of evenly dispersed throughout the book. You want to make sure that you're varying your pace, that you have fast paced action scenes and slower, more reflective moments, giving a nice variation, giving, allowing time for character development and also, furthering the plot at the same time. You're also going to want to trim some of the excess. So, any scenes and descriptions that don't advance the plot or develop the character, you can deem those unnecessary, or you can choose to elaborate them and make them more character driven or plot driven. You also want to look for cliffhangers. So, at the ends of the chapter, make sure that there's cliffhangers or unresolved questions that want the reader to turn the page, eager to discover, the answer or what happens next, is very important to keep the reader going. And I forget where I'd heard this, but there was somebody had told me that Anne Rice at one time had submitted a manuscript and it was rejected several times. And she revised it that at the end of every page, like to turn the page, there was some sort of cliffhanger at the end of that page that made the person want to turn the page. And she did that, I think, on like every page. And she resubmitted that manuscript and it got picked up immediately. And they took it to the publisher and they published it and the book wasn't moving at all. And they're like, well, this was so great. I couldn't put it down whenever I was reading it. What happened? Now it's not selling. And so she told the agent and the publisher what she'd done to get it to that stage and putting that kind of page turner moment at the bottom of the page. And whenever they reformatted it, it was no longer that way. And so I think I can't remember if they reformatted the book, but I just thought it was interesting how that would be immensely difficult to make sure that at the bottom of every page was a page turning moment, but it would be a way to do it, to keep people involved. And if anybody was going to do it, I would think it would be Anne Rice. So I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. So ensuring plot coherence. So you're looking for the compelling story. Do you have a clear beginning, a middle, and an end? Are the scenes logical? So you created an outline for your story. You have your major plot points, your subplots. Make sure that they fit together logically, that they make sense. You want to check for consistencies, making sure that characters' actions and motivations are consistent throughout the story. We kind of talked about this in the last video. Stay true to your characters. Make sure that there's not inconsistency or anything confusing the reader or weaken the narrative of the story. Making sure that your subplots are resolved by the end of the story. They can leave the reader feeling unsatisfied by the end if you don't tie up all of the little loose ends. And foreshadowing, using foreshadowing to hint at future events, tie different parts of the story together, adding depth and a more cohesive narrative. And then, looking at your character development. You've created detailed backstories, making sure that the rich backstory kind of is reflected in their actions and their motivation, making them believable, making them more real. Make sure that you're showing growth, that they're evolving throughout the story, the actions and the challenges and the decisions and the learning that goes on during the story should, now they have these life experiences, should show some volume of growth within that character. You have distinctive voices. So each character kind of has a unique voice and a unique perspective. You don't want all of your characters to agree 100% of the time. Because people in the real world don't agree 100% of the time. They agree on some things, not on others. Using dialogue can be more engaging and more memorable to kind of convey this distinct voice for each character. And making sure that your characters' behaviors and speeches are consistent. No unexpected changes. So you can choose at this stage to get some type of feedback from trusted peers or professional editors on which areas need improvement. Just make sure you're choosing wisely who your alpha readers, beta readers, or critique partners are. At this point, you can use family and friends just as long as they're willing to give constructive feedback. But just remember that you have to be open to criticism and accept it with an open mind. It is difficult to hear criticism, but you have to understand that if the reader read that and it didn't make sense to them, just because it makes sense to you that wrote it, it might not make sense to the reader. So you need to go back and you need to take those seriously and you need to look there. And make sure you're asking specific questions. I do have beta readers, and sometimes they're like, well, what am I looking for? It's like, well, did you get bored anywhere? Did you like a character? Did you not like a character? Was there anything that was like, I can't believe that character would do that? It doesn't seem like it would be in line with what that character's goals and motivations. Missed opportunities. I've had a beta reader say, hey, I was looking for more. I was expecting something to happen right here. It was going to be awesome. And it was a missed opportunity, and then going back and taking that feedback and revising accordingly. Just because somebody suggests something doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it to the final product. But taking it under advisement and taking it seriously is part of your job as the writer. So don't feel obligated to accept every suggestion, but you need to determine whether or not it would add value to your story, and whether or not it's worth incorporation or worth an adjustment. So ultimately, it's up to you as the writer on what criticism you choose to revise and what you choose not to. But it is completely, up to you, but you should at least take it under advisement. So now that we are in the editing process, instead of happy writing, we're going to be happy editing. So see you next time.